3 a.m. visitor who knew my name. It started with a knock. Not a frantic, desperate knock, but the kind you'd expect from a friend who already knew you were awake. I froze in my bed, staring at the clock. 3 a.m. The knock came again, deliberate, confident, like someone was entitled to be there. I lived alone. No one should have been at my door. My first thought was a neighbor in trouble, but something in my gut told me otherwise. I slid out of bed, every creak of the floorboards amplified in the silence. My apartment felt stretched, like the walls were listening. At the door, I didn't speak. I just stood there, barely breathing. "Open up," a voice said, low and steady. "I know you're awake." My chest tightened. The voice wasn't panicked. It wasn't asking for help. It was calm, certain, and worse, it said my name. No one should know my name like that. Not at 3 a.m. My friends text, my family calls. Whoever was outside wanted me to trust them. But everything in me screamed, I shouldn't. I kept silent, clutching the knob. A scraping sound followed, like fingers dragging across the wood, slow and deliberate. Then a soft laugh, too quiet, like it was meant only for me to hear. I backed away, step by step, into the living room. I grabbed my phone, hands trembling, and dialed 911. The line rang once, twice, then clicked. But the voice that answered wasn't the dispatcher. "You don't need to call them," it whispered. "I'm already inside." My skin went cold. I dropped the phone. My eyes darted around the room, but nothing looked disturbed. Yet the air felt different, heavier, as though another breath lingered just behind mine. I wasn't alone anymore. The TV flickered on without warning. Static filled the room, and in the shifting patterns, I swore I saw a face half-formed, grinning, eyes locked to mine. I stumbled backward, my throat locked in a scream I couldn't release. The voice came again, but this time from the static itself. "Why don't you sit? You'll want to see this." My legs betrayed me, folding beneath me, forcing me to the couch like I'd been pushed. The static shifted, resolving into an image of my apartment, my hallway, my kitchen, the door I hadn't opened. It was like a live feed from cameras I never installed. And then, in frame, a shadow moved. It walked casually, like it belonged there, like it had lived here longer than I had. My breath caught as the shadow turned, facing the camera. The outline was wrong too tall, shoulders sharp, head tilting unnaturally to one side. And then it spoke through the screen. "I told you I was inside." I bolted upright, rushing toward the door, desperate to escape. But the knob didn't budge, locked as though welded shut. The laugh echoed behind me. I spun, ready to fight, but nothing was there. Just my living room, silent, static buzzing softly from the television. My phone lay on the floor, screen black. No evidence of the call I made. No evidence at all. The clock ticked forward 3:01, 3:02, 3:03, and then the knock returned. The same steady rhythm, as though the entire nightmare had reset. My body went rigid. Was this a loop? Was I still on the first knock? I crept back to the door, pressing my ear against it. Silence, then a whisper, right at the wood. "You can't ignore me forever." My breath fogged the air. I wasn't dreaming. This was real, horribly real. The lights flickered, buzzing overhead. Shadows stretched across the walls, not matching my movements. One shadow lingered too long, turning its head toward me when I stood still. My chest pounded with each beat, like it might split open. I grabbed a kitchen knife, the only defense I had. My hands shook, sweat slicking the handle. Every horror movie I'd seen told me it was useless, but I clung to it like a lifeline. Then came the third knock. This time, the door handle twisted. Slowly, deliberately, like whoever or whatever was outside was growing impatient. The sound of metal grinding filled the room. And then the latch clicked. though I hadn't unlocked it. The door creaked open an inch. I couldn't breathe. Every cell in my body screamed to run, but my legs felt cemented in place. A pale hand slipped through the crack, pressing flat against the wood. Too many fingers. The voice returned, closer, clearer. I told you. I know your name. I know everything. My mind reeled. Why me? How? My knife clattered to the floor, useless. I was paralyzed, caught between fight and absolute terror. The hand withdrew, but the door stayed ajar. Silence stretched, unbearable, before the TV snapped louder, static roaring. The same shadow appeared again, this time inside the living room feed. But when I turned, nothing was there. No sound, no movement, just silence. Until I heard breathing behind me. Slow, steady, deliberate. The kind of breathing you hear in a dark room when someone's pretending not to be seen. I spun, finally finding my voice in a ragged scream. The door slammed shut. The static cut out. The clock blinked, resetting back to exactly 3 a.m. And then the first knock came again. That was just one of the 3 a.m. horror box stories. If it left you uneasy, subscribe now. You don't want to miss the next time the horror box opens at 3 a.m. The Vanishing route. I've worked as a delivery driver for 6 years. The night shift is lonely, but it pays well, and I like the quiet roads. Still, some nights feel wrong from the start. This was one of them. It was 2:57 a.m. when my GPS chirped, instructing me to take a left turn onto a road I'd never noticed before. I knew the city inside out, but this street? It wasn't supposed to exist. The sign read, Hollow Pines Road, faded letters clinging to rust. I hesitated, but the GPS insisted, repeating the same command. Against my better judgment, I turned. The headlights carved tunnels through endless trees. The deeper I drove, the more unnatural the silence became. No crickets, no wind, just the low hum of my engine. The GPS kept its calm, robotic tone. Continue straight. Estimated arrival time, 3 a.m. The road stretched forever, the odometer ticking on, but the scenery didn't change. Pine trees, dark and identical, flicked past like a looping film reel. My gut told me to turn back, but the GPS voice cut in again. Destination ahead. Relief hit me until I realized what waited. The trees opened into a clearing, revealing a single house. 2 stories, sagging porch, every window dark. It looked abandoned for decades, but the porch light flickered on. I parked, hands trembling on the steering wheel. The delivery slip on the seat said nothing, just my name scrawled across it. My chest tightened. This wasn't a customer. This was a setup. Yet the box in back pulsed. I swear it moved, shifting like something alive was inside. Against reason, I grabbed it and stepped out. Gravel crunched under my shoes. The air was colder here, thick with damp earth and something metallic blood, maybe. Each step toward the porch felt heavier, as though gravity itself fought me. The flickering bulb above the door buzzed like an insect dying. Then the door creaked open before I could knock. The house invited me in. I should have left. I should have thrown the package and run. But something tugged me forward, unseen hands guiding me across the threshold. The smell hit first rot, mold, and something sweet beneath it, like fruit gone rancid. The house was silent except for faint whispers, too far away to understand. The walls leaned inward, the floor groaned beneath me, and yet the package grew heavier, urging me deeper. A staircase loomed ahead, dark as a pit. I climbed, each step shrieking underfoot. Halfway up, the GPS voice spoke again, but from my pocket. I hadn't touched the phone. Delivery location reached. Leave package inside. My blood froze. I didn't program that. At the landing, a door waited ajar. Faint light spilled from within. pale and sickly. My breath caught as I nudged it open. The room was empty except for a table, bare except for a torn guest book. The guest book lay open, pages filled with names. Hundreds, maybe thousands, all written in different handwriting. At the very bottom, the ink still wet, was mine. My hand shook, but I hadn't written it. The whispers grew louder, circling me. Shadows crawled across the walls, though nothing moved. The package shook violently in my arms, rattling like bones. Then, with a wet tearing sound, the cardboard split. Something inside pushed against the opening. I dropped it. The box thrashed, unfolding itself. Cardboard shredding like skin. A black shape unfurled, tall and bent, with limbs too long to be human. Its head scraped the ceiling, face hidden in shifting dark. The whispers silenced. For a moment, the house held its breath. Then the creature spoke, voice like my GPS, calm and mechanical. Delivery accepted. Its head turned toward me. Driver logged. The guest book pages flipped wildly. I ran, down the stairs, through the rotting halls, past the buzzing bulb. The door slammed behind me as I hit the porch. The forest pressed closer, trees leaning in like they wanted to smother me. I bolted for my truck, but when I opened the door, the cab wasn't empty. Another package waited on the seat. Identical box, identical scrawl of my name. My stomach dropped. The first one hadn't been the only. The GPS chimed again, its screen glowing without touch. Next delivery scheduled. The map twisted, lines warping, leading deeper into the forest. The estimated time glowed in red, 3 a.m. It was still 2:59. I slammed the truck into drive, desperate to escape, but the road looped endlessly. No matter how far I sped, the house appeared again, looming from the trees, porch light flickering. The box in the passenger seat rattled. The GPS voice spoke, quieter now, almost mocking. No route available. Driver must complete delivery. My knuckles widened on the wheel. The house loomed closer. My chest heaved. The clock clicked forward. 3 a.m. That was the vanishing route. But the horror box isn't empty yet. If you think this story ended badly, the next delivery is even worse. Subscribe now and open the horror box at 3 a.m. if you dare. The man in my photos. I don't take many pictures. I'm not the type to document every meal, every outfit, or every night out. But sometimes I snap a few photos for myself to remember where I've been, who I was. Last week, scrolling through my phone, I noticed something strange. A shape in the background of one photo. A man, blurred but unmistakable, standing too close, too still. His face almost looked like he was smiling. At first, I thought nothing of it. Maybe someone just walked into frame. It happens all the time. But when I swiped to the next picture, my stomach turned. He was there again. Closer, always smiling. I checked more. He appeared in almost every shot. Behind me in a cafe, standing in the distance at the park, reflected in a store window. Always watching, always smiling, always in places he shouldn't be. I didn't remember seeing him in real life, not once. Nobody stands still like that. Nobody follows like that. I zoomed in on one photo, my hand shaking. His eyes were locked directly on the camera lens. The more I searched, the worse it got. He wasn't just in new photos. He was in old ones, 2 pictures from months ago, even years back. Photos I knew I'd taken completely alone. He was there, sometimes far away, a silhouette on a sidewalk. Other times closer, half hidden behind me, his face lit by the camera flash. Always smiling, like he knew something I didn't, like he'd been there the whole time. I showed my friend, desperate for confirmation. "Do you see him?" I asked, shoving the screen toward her. She frowned, then laughed awkwardly. "See who?" she said, My blood ran cold. On her screen, he wasn't there. I tried again, showing another friend. Same reaction. Confusion, then concern. Nobody else could see him. On their phones, he was gone. Only my device showed him, smiling closer with each photo I scrolled through. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking my camera roll, swiping faster, my pulse racing. In one, he stood behind a bus stop glass. In another, he leaned in through a window reflection, always closer. Then, in one photo, he wasn't smiling anymore. His expression was flat, serious, like he knew I was finally paying attention. Something in his eyes made my skin crawl. He wasn't watching me anymore. He was waiting. I deleted every photo, every single one. My storage was nearly empty when I finished, my hands trembling, my heart pounding. I turned my phone off, tossed it across the room, and tried to sleep. At 3:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. A new notification. One new photo saved. My stomach sank. I hadn't touched the phone. I picked it up with shaking hands. One image was there, fresh, taken tonight. It was me, asleep in my bed. The angle was wrong, too close, like someone had leaned directly over me with the phone. In the corner of the frame, crouched low, was the man, smiling. I threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall, the screen splintering. My breath came fast, shallow. The apartment was silent, too silent. I forced myself to look toward the shadows. My reflection in the dark window. There was a shape behind me, a blur in the glass, tall, still, smiling. I spun around, heart hammering, but the room was empty. Nothing there. Just the silence, pressing against my ears until they rang. I didn't sleep. I sat with the lights on, clutching a kitchen knife until dawn. Every creak, every draft felt like movement. My cracked phone sat across the room, face down, as though hiding its own secret. The next day, I bought a new phone. I told myself it was just a glitch, corrupted files. But when I sensed my cloud storage, the photos reappeared, every single one. And he was still in them, closer than before, his face clearer, sharper. I could almost see the texture of his skin now, the curve of his teeth when he smiled. Like the image quality had improved while everything else remained the same. That night, I covered every mirror, every reflective surface. I left the phone in the kitchen, screen down. But at 3:12 again, it buzzed. One new photo saved. I didn't want to look. I couldn't, but I did. My hand shook as I lifted it, unlocked the screen, opened the gallery. The new photo was waiting. It showed me, sitting exactly where I was. And over my shoulder, his face. I dropped the phone, backing against the wall. My pulse thudded in my ears, louder than the silence. I felt watched, like a presence pressed in around me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, just the weight of eyes. I stayed awake until morning again. My phone was face down, silent. But when I finally dared to check, the gallery was different. Dozens of new photos had appeared. All of me, all taken while I slept. In every photo, he was closer. Sometimes standing at the doorway, sometimes crouched beside the bed, sometimes leaning inches from my face. Always smiling, always watching. His hand sometimes reaching out, frozen mid-motion, as though he'd nearly touched me. I stopped checking after that, stopped sleeping too. My body feels heavy, slow. I see him in reflections now, even when the phone isn't near. In store windows, in dark TV screens. Always smiling, always closer. Nobody else can see him. They think I'm sick, paranoid. But I know the truth. The more I notice him, the more he notices me. The more I look, the clearer he becomes. The closer he comes. If you check your photos tonight, and you see someone standing where nobody should be, don't zoom in. Don't stare. Don't look too long, because once you notice him, he notices you. And once he notices you, he never stops. Others ignored him until it was too late. Open the horror box if you want more. The signature that signed itself. I've handled thousands of packages in my career, but this one still haunts me. It was a routine night run, nothing unusual on the docket. At least, that's what I told myself before I saw the address. The slip said, "Delivery confirmed at 2:59 a.m. Strange, since I hadn't left the warehouse yet. The signature line wasn't blank either. My stomach tightened when I saw it. My name, written in handwriting that wasn't mine. At first, I thought it was a glitch in the scanner system, but when I loaded the truck, the box felt wrong. It was too heavy for its size, corners pulsing faintly like something inside wanted out. I told myself to ignore it. The company was notorious for bad equipment. Still, I couldn't shake the unease as the GPS led me into a quiet suburban neighborhood. All the houses dark, except for one porch light. The address matched the slip, number 1213. The house itself looked abandoned. Peeling paint, sagging roof, windows covered with yellowed newspaper. Yet the porch light glowed, flickering faintly, as if it knew I was coming. I carried the box up the steps, the wood groaning under my boots. The door creaked open on its own, revealing only darkness inside. My scanner beeped in my pocket, though I hadn't touched it. Delivery confirmed. That should have been the end. But curiosity got the better of me. I glanced at the screen. The delivery wasn't signed by the customer. It was signed again my name. Same strange handwriting, fresh and recent. A chill raced down my spine. I backed away, nearly tripping over the package still at my feet. The air smelled faintly of iron, like blood left too long in the heat. Then a voice whispered from inside the house. "Thank you." The sound was soft, genderless, but it spoke directly into my ear, though the doorway remained empty. The package slid forward on its own, inching over the porch as if unseen hands dragged it inside. I bolted to the truck, slamming the door shut, chest heaving. My scanner chimed again. Next delivery, 3 a.m. Another address flashed on the screen, this time my own. My apartment number. My building. The place I'd left hours earlier. I floored the gas, tires screaming against the pavement. The neighborhood blurred past, houses melting together. Yet every turn I took, every street I tried, the GPS forced me back to the same route. My apartment building loomed ahead. Lights blazed in my windows. Someone was home. My gut churned because I lived alone. The scanner buzzed. Delivery confirmed. I hadn't even parked yet. I glanced down, and there it was again. My name, signed in perfect ink. This time, the package didn't wait in the back. It was sitting in the passenger seat, sealed tight. The cardboard vibrated faintly, rattling with muffled scratching. I gripped the wheel until my knuckles turned bone white. I wanted to dump it, leave it on the curb, never look back. But the GPS voice cut in again, low and commanding. Delivery incomplete. Driver must enter. My body went cold. It didn't feel like a suggestion. I stumbled out, clutching the box. The building was too quiet, no TVs, no footsteps, no neighbors. Only the flicker of my apartment light upstairs. My legs carried me, though every nerve screamed to run. The door to my apartment was already open. Inside, I heard movement. Slow, deliberate steps pacing across my floorboards. My throat dried as I set the package down, heart hammering like a drum. The footsteps stopped. Silence pressed in, suffocating. Then the scanner in my hand lit up. Signature required. I looked down. The screen glowed red. A digital pen blinked, waiting for me to sign my own name. My hand trembled. Against my will, I raised the stylus and scrawled the letters. The moment I finished, The box ripped open. Darkness poured out, not smoke, not shadow, but a living void, swallowing the air and light. From within, a figure stepped out. It looked exactly like me. Same face, same clothes, same shaking hands. Except its smile was too wide, stretching beyond skin. It whispered with my voice, "Delivery complete." The lights in my apartment died. The last thing I remember was its cold hand pressing against my chest as the scanner chimed. Then everything went black. When I woke, I wasn't in my truck. I was in the package. Cardboard walls pressed tight against my face. The scanner beeped faintly outside. I heard my voice, its voice confirming another delivery. Now I know why the signature signed itself. I never made that delivery. Something else did, and it wears my skin. If you ever see my name on a package, don't open it. Please. That was the signature that signed itself. But remember, the horror box never empties. The next 3 a.m., story is waiting for you, and it's darker than this one. Open it if you dare. Room 237 doesn't exist. I was running late that night, the kind of shift where exhaustion clings to your skin. The dispatcher handed me a slip with one address highlighted in bold. Delivery to room 237, Ashwick Towers. Deliver at 3 a.m. sharp. The name Ashwick sounded familiar. I realized why when I pulled up an old high-rise downtown, infamous for fire damage years ago. Most of the upper floors had been condemned. Half the building sat in shadows, a skeleton of itself. Still, the lobby lights glowed faintly, buzzing with an electrical hum. I wheeled the box across the cracked tiles, scanner blinking green. When I asked the security guard where to find room 237, he froze, face draining of color. "There is no room 237, he whispered, eyes darting to the dark stairwell. It was sealed after the fire. No tenants. No deliveries. His words should have been enough. But the slip in my hand still read the same. The elevator doors opened before I pressed a button. The display inside was cracked, numbers flickering. And there, between 2 and 3, a faint, flickering light glowed. The number 237. It shouldn't have been possible. The elevator groaned as it carried me upward. The doors opened to a hallway suffocated by smoke stains and peeling wallpaper. Every door was boarded shut except one. Room 237. The door looked freshly painted, brass handle gleaming like new. I set the box down, trying to shake the unease. My scanner beeped. Delivery confirmed. My hand hovered over the knob. But before I touched it, the door swung open, creaking like old bones. Inside, the room was untouched by fire. A pristine apartment, warm lamplight casting a golden glow. Furniture sat perfectly arranged, a meal waiting on the table, as though someone had been expecting me. My pulse pounded in my ears. Then I noticed the photographs. Dozens of them, framed and hung neatly on the walls. Everyone showed me. Delivering packages, eating lunch in my truck, sleeping in my own bed. They weren't old shots. They were taken days, maybe hours ago. The scanner buzzed again. Signature required. On the table lay a clipboard with the delivery slip. But the name wasn't a customer. It was mine. The handwriting eerily familiar, looping letters just like I'd write them in a hurry. A chair scraped across the floor. Someone unseen pulled it out, inviting me to sit. My chest locked tight. I grabbed the pen, scrawling my signature just to end this nightmare. The instant I finished, the box shuddered violently. It burst open, spilling out smoke thicker than tar. A shape crawled free, its body half burned, eyes glowing like embers. It smiled, teeth cracked and blackened, and whispered, "You finally brought me home." I stumbled backward, slamming into the wall of photographs. The frames rattled, glass shattering to the floor. But the pictures had changed. Everyone now showed me burning alive, skin blistered, mouth stretched in a silent scream. The creature rose taller, filling the room with choking smoke. It reached for me, fingers skeletal, skin peeling in flakes. My scanner blared. Delivery complete. The voice came from the creature's mouth, my own voice twisted into a mockery. I sprinted for the door, dragging the scanner with me. The hallway warped, stretching endlessly. Every door I passed now bore the number 237, each one opening slightly as I ran, whispers bleeding into the air. Stay, stay. At last, the elevator appeared. I slammed the button, praying for escape. The doors opened, and inside, instead of floors, there was only a mirror. My reflection stared back, except it wasn't me. Its smile was too wide. Behind the reflection, the burned figure stood, hand pressed against the glass, whispering in sync with my reflection. Next delivery, next delivery. The elevator dropped, weightless, like free fall. I woke gasping in my truck. Morning sunlight poured through the windshield. The scanner lay on the passenger seat. It flashed one line across the screen. Next delivery, room 237. That was weeks ago. No matter where I go, no matter what address I take, the slip always changes, always rewrites itself. Every package, every route, every night, it's always room 237. And eventually, I know I'll have to go back. That was room 237. Doesn't exist. But the horror box is never empty. Another 3 a.m. delivery is already waiting. Open it, and you'll see why some stories follow you home. The package that wasn't addressed to me. Halfway dark, home of the horror box. I came home one evening to find a cardboard box waiting for me. Plain, brown, and square. It sat directly on my doormat, as though someone had carefully placed it there, expecting me to notice immediately. It wasn't the box itself that froze me in place. It was the handwriting. My apartment number had been written in thick black marker, jagged strokes pressed so hard into the cardboard they almost tore completely through. And the number was wrong. I live in 302, but this said 320. The crooked lines leaned at odd angles, too deliberate to be careless. It looked like someone had tried and failed to imitate precision. Still, curiosity overruled fear. I picked it up, surprised by the weight. Heavier than expected, strangely balanced, as if the contents were packed unnaturally dense. Carrying it inside, I felt the air shift the moment the door shut. Not haunted, not cursed, just unsettled. Like I had allowed something inside I never should have. Setting it on the counter, I cut the tape open, bracing myself for trash, joke, or maybe some cruel neighbor's idea of humor. Inside lay a small toy car. Blue paint chipped on the edges, the driver's side door missing entirely. My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen that toy since childhood. I lost it under my parents' porch nearly 20 years ago. Beneath the toy was a folded piece of paper, blank on both sides. And under that, a Polaroid photograph. My pulse stuttered when I saw my own sleeping face, my bedroom behind me, time-stamped from the night before. The photo showed me tucked under blankets, head tilted toward the wall. The angle was low, close, like someone had been standing at the edge of the bed. I dropped it instantly, bile rising in my throat. Nobody had a key. I always triple-checked the locks. Yet someone had entered my home, close enough to photograph me breathing in the dark. The toy from my past, the photo from last night, none of it made sense. That evening, I barricaded the door, sealed every window, drew the blinds. The box remained on the counter, daring me to move it. I told myself it was evidence, proof. I couldn't throw it away, not yet. The next day, I pushed through work in a fog. Every sound startled me. Every passing stranger felt like a suspect. When I drove home, dread clawed at me. My hands trembled on the steering wheel with anticipation. Another box waited on the doormat. Same cardboard. Same shaky handwriting, same wrong number. I didn't touch it at first. I stood there listening, heart pounding, before finally carrying it inside, my palms slick with sweat. Inside was a t-shirt. My t-shirt, the exact one I was wearing at that moment. Same bleach stain near the collar, same frayed hem at the sleeve. An impossible duplicate, folded carefully as if freshly laundered. I ripped open my dresser drawers, searching through my clothes. Every shirt was accounted for. The copy in the box shouldn't exist. I held it up against myself in the mirror, shivering at the sight of two identical versions. Sleep never came that night. I sat awake on the couch, every creak in the building amplifying until my skin crawled. At 2 a.m, I peered through the peephole. The hallway stood empty, silent, waiting. By the third night, exhaustion numbed me. Still, dread burned stronger. Another box waited on the mat. Heavier this time, cardboard nearly buckling. The handwriting looked frantic, loops slashed so deep they carved the fibers into curling ridges. I carried it inside, though my instincts screamed to leave it. Inside, I found a cracked wristwatch I hadn't seen since college, its hands frozen at 3:15. Beneath it, a warped library card bearing my full name. The final item was another Polaroid. It showed me unlocking my apartment door the previous night. The perspective was behind me, close enough to see strands of hair out of place. Whoever took it had been within arm's reach. I went straight to the building manager. He pulled security footage from the hallway camera. The feed glitched every night around 7. Frames jumped, audio warped. When the picture returned, a box was already waiting silently on my doormat. "You're not the first," he muttered. My stomach lurched. When I asked what he meant, his face closed off. He shut the laptop quickly, his hands trembling. Whatever he had seen before, he wasn't willing to discuss. That night, I swore not to touch the next one. If another appeared, I'd call the police immediately. But when I unlocked my door, my stomach twisted. No package sat on the mat. Instead, something waited inside my apartment. Centered neatly on the living room rug sat another box. The flaps weren't sealed, just folded inward, like someone had wanted me to open it without resistance. My legs moved automatically, carrying me forward despite every scream in my head. Inside was a camcorder. Old, bulky, its plastic casing scratched. The red light blinked steadily, still recording. With shaking hands, I pressed rewind. The tiny screen flickered alive, showing footage I instantly recognized. My breath hitched when I saw myself. I was asleep in bed, turned on my side, blankets pulled to my chin. The camera's perspective was from inside my room, aimed downward at me. Whoever filmed stood only a few feet away, watching my chest rise and fall. I dropped the device. It clattered against the floor, still recording. I shoved the box into the closet without thinking. Then I sat on the rug until dawn, unable to move, waiting for daylight to push the shadows back. It has been 3 nights since that discovery. No new packages have come, but I know more will. Each delivery felt like part of a sequence, objects stacked as clues, steps leading toward some destination I cannot yet see. I considered going to the police, but what could I tell them? That someone delivers boxes filled with my belongings? That someone photographs me sleeping? They'd laugh, or worse, suggest I fabricated everything. The evidence itself feels unreal, impossible. Yet the camcorder remains. In the closet, its red light still blinks. I cannot throw it away. Sometimes I swear I hear a faint whir from behind the door, as though the lens continues recording, even unseen. The fear has changed. I no longer dread the boxes themselves. I dread the silence between them. Waiting for the next appearance is worse than opening them. Anticipation gnaws deeper than the horror already shown. The pause is unbearable. And so I sit here, waiting for the next knock that never comes, for the next package that will appear regardless. If you ever find a plain brown box with no name, don't open it. Don't even touch it. Because once you do, the next one is already on its way. Some say others discovered too late. Open the horror box if you want to know more. The neighbor who wasn't supposed to be there. Halfway Dark, home of the horror box. When I signed the lease, the landlord made a point of mentioning something unusual. The unit next to mine was empty, he said. Had been for years. No tenant, no furniture, just dust behind a locked door. I didn't think much of it. Empty apartments aren't rare, especially in old buildings. The place was cheap, and I was desperate. My unit was small, but cozy enough, with just enough space for my things. For the first 2 weeks, everything felt normal. Work, home, sleep, repeat. Then one night, I heard it. A sound that made me sit up in bed instantly. Footsteps, pacing, coming from the apartment next door. At first, I thought it was my imagination. Buildings creak, pipes groan, but this was steady. Heel to toe, back and forth pacing across the floor. Someone moving slowly, rhythmically, only a few feet away from my head. I pressed my ear to the wall. The sound stopped instantly, like whoever was inside knew I was listening. I waited 5 minutes, maybe longer. Silence. Just as I pulled away, the pacing resumed, louder. The next morning, I mentioned it to the landlord. He frowned, confused. "That's impossible," he said. "Nobody lives there. I keep it locked." When I pressed, he offered to show me the unit, prove it was empty. That evening, he unlocked the door. Dust coated everything. The air was stale, untouched. No furniture, no curtains, no light bulbs even. The place smelled abandoned. "See?" he said. "Nobody here. Pipes carry noise weird sometimes." I nodded, unsettled. That night, the pacing returned. Same steady rhythm, heel to toe, back and forth. Sometimes slow, sometimes frantic. I lay awake, staring at the wall. The sound grew louder the longer I listened, until it felt like the footsteps were inside my own apartment. Days passed, and the noises continued. Sometimes I swore I heard faint whispers, muffled through the drywall, like a conversation held too low to follow. Other times, there was dragging, something heavy being pulled across the floor. I tried to ignore it, but soon things started moving in my apartment. My toothbrush damp when I hadn't touched it. The fridge door slightly ajar in the morning. Shoes I left by the door shifted inches overnight. At first, I blamed myself. Stress, forgetfulness. Maybe I was losing track, but the disturbances grew. My phone charger unplugged. A picture frame turned upside down. The kind of subtle changes you don't notice immediately, but can't forget once you do. One night, I saw shadows. Thin slivers of light leaked from beneath the adjoining door between our apartments. And through that narrow glow, I saw movement. Shadows pacing back and forth, exactly in time with the footsteps I heard above me. There shouldn't have been light. There shouldn't have been anyone inside. Yet I crouched low, heart hammering, watching shadows shift beneath the doorframe. I whispered to myself, desperate, "The landlord showed you? It's empty. You saw it yourself." But the shadows kept moving. And then they stopped, as though whoever was inside knew I was watching. For several minutes, nothing happened. Finally, a slow, deliberate knock rattled the other side of the door. 3 times. Then silence. I didn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen with every light on until morning. When I left for work, the hallway outside was perfectly still. No footprints, no marks. Just my locked neighbor's door, innocent and quiet. I begged the landlord again. He swore nobody had keys except him. Still, he humored me. We opened the unit a second time together. Again, empty. Same layer of dust. Same stale air. No footprints, no shadows, no sign of life. I wanted to believe him. But that night, the footsteps returned. Louder, closer. I pressed my ear against the wall, heart in my throat. This time, there were whispers too. A voice, low, raspy, too muffled to understand. Then I heard my name, clear as day, whispered softly through the wall. My blood froze. I pulled back, trembling, staring at the plaster. On the other side, the pacing stopped. The silence pressed in thick and suffocating. The next morning, I found something that made me sick. A scrap of paper slipped just barely under my front door, written in the same uneven scrawl as the packages. Why don't you come knock? I shoved the note in the trash. I told myself it was some cruel prank, a neighbor sneaking around despite what the landlord claimed. But deep down I knew. The handwriting was too strange, the words too deliberate. That night I heard scratching. Soft at first, like nails across wood. Then harder, faster, scraping furiously against the adjoining door. I sat frozen, clutching my blanket, listening as the noise built into a frenzy before cutting off completely. I gathered the courage to peek under the door with my phone's flashlight. I lay flat, pressing the beam against the floor. My breath stopped. Inches away, staring directly back, was an eye. Wide, bloodshot, unblinking. I scrambled back, slamming into the wall. The eye didn't move. It stayed fixed, watching me through the crack until my flashlight slipped from my shaking hands. The room plunged into darkness. When I looked again, the eye was gone. The landlord called me the next morning. His voice was tight, nervous. "Don't go near that apartment again," he said abruptly. "Locks were changed last year. Nobody's been in there since. If you hear anything, just ignore it." I demanded answers, but he hung up. His words replayed in my head all day. Nobody had been inside. Locks were changed. Dust, stale air, empty space. Yet someone whispered my name, left me notes, pressed an eye against the door. That night, I didn't even try to sleep. The footsteps returned, slow this time, heel to toe, dragging across the floor with deliberate weight. They paced the wall for hours. Then, sometime after midnight, they stopped directly beside my bed. I held my breath, praying it was over. Minutes passed in silence. Then softly, the voice came again. My name, whispered like a secret. So close I swore, I felt the breath through the plaster. I didn't move until sunrise. I've stopped asking questions. The landlord won't answer anymore. My neighbors avoid me. The noises never stop, and sometimes I catch myself waiting for them, like part of me has adapted to the presence. Like it belongs here. If you move into an apartment and the landlord tells you the unit next door is empty, don't believe him. Don't listen for footsteps. Don't ever look beneath the doorframe. Because once you do, it will know you're listening. And once it knows, it never stops. Others didn't realize until it was too late. Open the horror box if you want more.